Police in Calgary and Halifax are investigating two separate murder-suicide incidents with disturbing similarities. Both forces are calling the homicides intimate partner violence. The CBC's Mark Carcassole has more details.
In the case in Halifax, this happened around 10:30 p.m. The evening of New Year's Eve. Police were called to an apartment building on Gottingen Street, just outside of downtown Halifax. It's unclear whether they arrived and went inside the apartment or it was somewhere on the property of the apartment building. But when they got there, they found a woman dead and another man unresponsive in a vehicle. Both of them had been shot, both of them dying of their injuries. Police identified those two people as 40-year-old Cora Lee Smith and her 73-year-old father, Bradford Downey. Not long after, a couple hours after, at 1:30 a.m., technically New Year's Day, they responded to a call at the Halifax Common, in the oval of the Halifax Common. And the Halifax Common is a large park in the middle, essentially, of downtown Halifax. That's where they found another man with a gunshot wound. They found the gun at the scene. They say they believe that is a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The man in question, 39-year-old Matthew Costain, dead as well. His death is still under investigation, but police say he was in a relationship with 40-year-old Cora Lee Smith, who was the woman found dead on the property of that apartment building. Police, as Andrew mentioned, are saying this is a case of intimate partner violence, something they say they see plenty of during the holidays.
Yeah, during the holidays, things can get a little tough on people, and so I don't have any statistics or hard data to provide. However, we do hear of a lot of situations happening around the holidays.
The police say they are not looking for any outstanding suspects in this case. However, they do say that their investigation is still ongoing. There are autopsies scheduled for the three people deceased.
And police in Calgary are also investigating a murder-suicide with similarities to the Halifax case.
Yeah, very similar the way it played out. This one really started back on Christmas Day with a family dispute in which a set of brother-in-laws almost came to blows. It developed from there over the next few days. Police on the evening of, it was last Sunday, found a woman dead in her home. This was about a 15-minute drive away from her father's place, and they found her father dead shortly before that. Less than 2 hours before that, they found Stan Wardzala dead at his home in the northwestern part of Calgary. And then about an hour and a half later, they found his daughter, Anya Wardzala, dead in her home. They were looking for Benedict Kaminsky, who was the husband of Anya Wardzala. They put out a dangerous person alert saying Kaminsky was armed and dangerous and wanted in connection for the murder of that father and daughter. Kaminsky was later found dead about a couple hours after that dangerous person's alert was put out, found dead in his vehicle of what is believed to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. CBC spoke to the son of Stan Wardzala, who is the brother of Anya Wardzala, who remembers his sister as just a sweet person who did not deserve what happened to her.
Everyone is in disbelief. She touched so many people's hearts, just an amazing mother. And yeah, I loved her to death. She was a beautiful daughter, amazing mother, and an amazing, absolutely outstanding sister to me.
Anya Wardzala and her husband, who police believe killed her, Benedict Kaminsky, had 3 young children. They are all okay, but there are suspicions there among the family that she was killed in the house while the children were still there. Police are still investigating the details. For what it's worth, Wardzala's brother, Peter, says he was not aware of her husband being physically violent toward her in any way, but it did seem in the days leading up to their separation and then the murders that they certainly had some harsh words.
All right, Mark, thank you. The CBC's Mark Carcassole.
Thank you.
For more on this, we're joined by Marlene Ham. She is the Executive Director at Ontario Association of Interval and Transition Houses, and we've reached her in Midhurst, Ontario. Marlene, appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So given these recent tragic incidents in Halifax and Calgary, where police are saying that this is yet another few examples of intimate partner violence, what factors do you think are driving that increase?
Yeah, I mean, similar here in Ontario. I mean, that is certainly what I can speak to is, when we look at the last 5 years of femicides here in Ontario, we're not seeing any change. particularly for women who've been killed by a current or former intimate partner. Those numbers have ultimately remained the same over the past 5 or 6 years. So we saw a shift in the pandemic, and we haven't seen another shift occur in the other direction. And in fact, we're seeing more women who've been killed where men have been deemed responsible or who have been charged in the killings. So we're deeply concerned in terms of what's happening. The number of lives lost. We've also lost a number of children over the past number of years who've been killed primarily by, many of them been killed by their own fathers. So this is, it's an issue of grave concern, across the country. No matter where you are, femicide is something that is impacting all communities, large and small. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what's causing it?
Well, we know that, we don't really have the services to match the demand. I think it's fair that we've established that. We have inquests that have occurred, calling for numerous recommendations. Mass Casualty Commission has called for numerous recommendations. We can look at, the impacts of, service demand. We can look at the impacts of, the economy, affordability, the lack of affordable housing, the impact of poverty and what that's, the toll that's taking on families, but also for people to be able to, leave situations, for them to leave situations safely. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we really need to turn our minds on how to prevent violent and abusive behavior that ultimately ends up on a lethal trajectory. So we do need to turn our minds to preventative programs. We can respond the best that we can respond, but ultimately the best solution is to find ways to prevent violent and abusive behavior.
So how do you do that? How do you prevent violence and abusive behavior in the first place?
And that's a great, thank you for the question, right? Because I think that is where, we need to be having that discussion. So, we need to be having more programs that are investing in early intervention and in prevention programs. Certainly there's lots of, we look at the school system as certainly being, a great point of access for that. But it's also kind of getting to families soon, the primary intervention doesn't need to be the criminal justice system. We need that, but we need to be reaching families prior to those criminal justice interventions to actually be more successful. So, what are ways that we can be providing services to family and ultimately community-based services provide a really, they do provide a really great response to be able to help them. But, we need the access to the affordable housing. We need to be able to afford the housing that exists, to be able to help families, get to a different place to help improve outcomes.
And what about the holidays? Is there evidence of a spike in gender-based violence during the holiday period?
Yeah, certainly what we've seen in Ontario, we have seen femicides occur over the holiday period. Some years we see that, and some years we don't. In what our members talk to us about is really around that pressure leading up to the holidays. And sometimes things might go quiet over the holidays, and then there's going to be another surge or spike in service right after the holidays. So they're kind of, they're dealing with, more access to service before and after. But we kind of look at it all together in the bigger picture. It's really because, families are just really trying to make it through the best they can. And certainly there have been years with really terrible tragedies, similar to what has happened in both Calgary and Halifax.
Marlene, thank you. Marlene Ham is the Executive Director at Ontario Association of Interval and Transition Houses.